Hey there, welcome to our AP Legal Zone podcast, brought to you by AP Lawyers. We are your top fix for all weekly law updates, including family, immigration, wills, and estates law. Just a friendly reminder, we are not your lawyers, and everything contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as legal advice. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about our new episodes. Hi everyone, my name is Sherine.
And I'm Angela Princewill.
And today we have a very brief episode and we're going to be talking about post-separation adjustments.
And what is that? Okay. Well, post-separation adjustments are when, literally what it is, post-separation adjustments. So usually when we calculate equalization, you understand that each person gets, half of the net family properties. And usually it should be that clean, but it almost never is. And there's multitude of reasons, right? People sometimes leave together. I actually have a file now that the people have been living together since 2015, even though they've been separated for that long. So you can imagine
the amount of adjustments that need to be.
It would be a nightmare to do those, like the accounting. And we also had the long motion. I believe that was in the May trial sittings where we had to, no, that wasn't May. I don't know, recently. November, sorry, that was the November trial sittings where we were dealing with a separation from 2010 and we're only just finalizing those matters. So imagine we're going to be dealing with post-separation adjustments for over 11 years, right? So post-separation adjustments are just generally monies that one party has incurred that the other needs to repay them for.
Yeah, and after separation.
And it's incurred after separation. So if I fix the stairs in my, in a home while we're still married, if we separate, it doesn't matter. Like you fix the stairs. It's what couples do things for each other, for the family as a whole. It doesn't matter. But if the stairs in the home need repairs and you've incurred the cost to do that, and now you're having to share that, you're equalizing the properties in some way, you need to be credited for that amount because it's past the date of separation and there's really no justification for you making that investment on behalf of the family.
And another common one is like maybe a joint home and one party's undertaking significant renovations so that the value of the home when it's sold is increased. Obviously the other party is going to benefit from that increased cost, so They should be paying for the adjustments that need to be made. So we would figure out what half of those costs would be, and then they would be responsible for them. Mm-hmm. So home renovations are pretty common. Other expenses, if you're paying on behalf of, maybe after separation, you're paying for the other spouse's car or car insurance. Cell phone is the most common one, surprisingly, and because sometimes you have family plans and there might be some issues, canceling that, or someone maybe upgrades the plan and leaves you with the bill. These aren't things that are just fell to the wayside. We will deal with them as part of post-separation adjustments. And I think a lot of the times, our clients might get concerned about some of the expenses they're incurring. And I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yes,
We're going to adjust it. It's not just silenced.
Yeah. I know I recently finalized a matter where we had to deal with insurance payments by one party from, I believe that was also from 2016, and then there were also hospital bills that were incurred by one party after the date of separation, so we also had to adjust for that, right? But I think the most complicated one that I'm working on right now involves, so there's the matrimony on which clearly both parties have been living in since the date of separation, but to even complicate that further, there used to be two tenants in the basement. Then at some point they became one tenant. So now we need an accounting and receipts for each year when there was two and one, because it's a jointly owned home. And even though during the marriage, the husband in this case was always collected the rent and applied it however he saw fit. Well, the wife at this point is saying, no, not anymore. I'm entitled to have that rent because this is half the property. So now it's gotten very complicated because husband's saying, well, I paid all the utilities, let's call it a wash. So it's not being called a wash. So we're getting receipts for 7 years of utility payment. We have 7 years of basement receipts. So there's, and for utilities, it's electrical, this, that, the whole deal.
I mean,
so it's
depending on the rent,
but
you never know who comes out ahead, right? It's just,
and it seems trivial. Well, it seems trivial when we're saying it this way, but in these calculations, the other side, and it's not actually my client, has actually incurred over $100 and something thousand of expenses post separation since 2016 when they separated. So we're looking at, so it's a number of years, but this includes mortgage payments as well.
Some mortgage. Right? Another common one are interest on joint line of credit. If somebody's paying down that line of credit, they're not only, if they're making only interest only payments, we have to figure out, obviously, what the other party's share would be. Hopefully it's just half, but to make things simple. But sometimes it could be that, maybe a party took out a larger amount after the date of separation. And so there's a higher amount of interest, and then we have to adjust for that. So it's really all of an accounting, but these are really just post-separation adjustments.
Okay. So I think that's that we sometimes, there's obviously adjustments also done for, say, children's expenses, things like that, but I like to think about that more as retroactive child support as opposed to post-separation adjustments. I think when we're talking about that, for the most part, we're dealing with home expenses and to either improve or maintain the home, like the mortgage payments, property taxes,
rent, if you're still living together, if you have a joint lease.
Yes, and all the other things you mentioned, insurance,
renovations, really everything you can think of other than ideally incidents of child support or daycare or Section 7 expenses.
We deal with those as retroactive, either retroactive child support or retroactive spousal support. And just think about it, you're separated now. There's really no justification for you paying for the other person's cell phone. It might have all been well and good, and it's not. I guess maybe we should say it might not always be expenses, right? Because as I said, in the basement situation, it might be that one person is used to receiving the assets. Yes, because when you were saying rent, I actually thought about it in terms of rent they're paying, but it could be an asset that's being received, but only one party has been receiving it. And now we need to adjust to make sure that the other side gets their entitlement to that amount, because you're no longer a couple now and you're entitled to get your half separately.
Yeah, and retroactive to the date of separation. Yeah. Which makes things fun. We get a lot of charts, we get a lot of receipts and invoices, and we get a lot of accounting to do.
Yeah. So, but hey, it needs to be done, and we do get it done. But I think that's pretty much it for post-separation adjustments, and we just wanted to let you know, don't be overly concerned about these expenses you're incurring. We will do the accounting. Ideally, we would rather not do it, for 11 years or something along those lines. The sooner we could get it done, obviously, the better. It's easier for you to remember things.
It's easier for you to get the documentation. So that might be proved to be difficult if it's past, hopefully not past 7-8 years, but good for you if you can keep those documents, but just something to put your mind to, that if you are incurring these expenses, make sure you're noting them, make sure you have documentation, make sure you're keeping them.
Because things like even renovations, right? Sometimes you're paying cash for these things.
Exactly.
And that could be
or you don't ask for a receipt, or you're not getting a receipt because you paid in cash and maybe you struck a deal, or
you just make sure you have the other party on board if you're doing that, because you might not be able to get that back if we can't show proof. And I think we need to, just to wrap up, we should talk about consent. I think consent's very important. Now, some things like property taxes, for example, consent's not really necessary to pay for property taxes. Like we all know, you have to, right? Even the mortgage. But let's say renovations.
Yes.
The number of times that we've had to deal with this, where one party thinks it's essential and the other thinks it's cosmetic, it's insane.
Yeah, if they're trying to sell, ideally, we're looking at getting the real estate opinion, the agent's opinion, if whether or not these are actual needed expenses, and obviously it'll be subject to the parties, but you can't just have free reign to do hundreds of thousands of dollars of renovations. I'm sure And then the courts also weighed in that if that's the circumstance of a home that needs to make those adjustments, sometimes it may just be sold on an as-is basis.
Yeah, you don't have like while a real estate person might suggest doing XYZ, there's times when the other party just wants their money and wants out.
Yeah.
And so they don't necessarily want to wait to do the adjustments. But I've had a lot of cases where, the roof is broken and someone says, well, I had to fix the roof and I had to do the floors and I had to. You need to, if you're going to be getting contribution from the other person, you need to get their consent, because there's times when I've been on both sides of the argument, but there's times where one person is saying, I could have done this. They didn't need to go pay $10,000 to get the floor done. Or if I had known this was happening, I could have come in and done it for, just buy the parts and I could do the labor. So how do they justify paying somebody $5,000 for labor when they're saying, I could have come in on the weekends and gotten this done? And the other person, I've also had someone on the other side say, well, yeah, it could be done, but we needed it done professionally and we needed it done, something done up to code or whatever. So
notifying the other party, providing their consent is always good. Yeah.
Yeah, as a general rule, just let the other side know, and maybe provide the quotes and things like that. And, obviously pictures help. So if you're saying this is, if water is leaking and there's potential to cause an electrical problem or even molding, things like that, then just take pictures.
Yeah.
Try to reach out to the other side. Don't just act unilaterally. Just try to reach out to the other side. We know sometimes the other side may make things difficult, but at least you've provided notice, right?
Yeah, you broach the issue. They're, as you say, necessary repairs if needed, but you definitely want to broach that subject with the other party.
I know the hardest is usually the cosmetic repairs, like someone thinking, well, if we sell this home with this cabinet in the bathroom or with these mirrors, it's not gonna, wouldn't stage nicely. And I respect that. God knows I'm constantly in some project or the other. It's a constant state of renovation.
Even staging costs are usually like an issue of dispute, because obviously the agent, thinks, like this is their profession, their expertise, that, if they stage a home a particular way, that they're going to attract more buyers, and it'll be more profitable. However, both parties do need to agree, because staging could be a significant cost.
Yeah, and that the other party is not willing to be
sometimes people just want their money to go buy their own home. They're not really willing to put, or also the time of the expense too, right? It could take a significant amount of time to do these repairs or these expenses, and sometimes the party doesn't have that time.
Exactly. No, that's all true. So while we're saying, well, don't be too bothered about some of the expenses, we would do the adjustments. Just be careful that we're not saying you have a blank check and free rein to just go and do things. But if your mortgage is going into default, by all means pay it. If the life insurance premiums aren't being paid, rather than letting it lapse, go ahead and pay it. Obviously, we're also keeping an eye out, imagining that there's funds somewhere that you could get reimbursed from in terms of the property, in terms of equalization, or maybe there's equity in a property, something along those lines. But I think that's it today for post-separation adjustment. And do you have anything to add, Sherine?
I think we've covered everything.
All right, it's bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and joining us in the AP Legal Zone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more episodes by searching AP Legal Zone on anywhere you watch podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast today so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about any new episodes.